Good afternoon. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Business Inspections, Housing and Zoning Committee for today, which is July 25th. We've been joined by 4 members of the committee, council members Osman, Rainville, and Chavez, and we're expecting council members, the other 2 council members should be arriving shortly. I am going to turn immediately to the consent agenda, and because we have a long list of public hearings. The consent agenda starts with item number 7, which are the liquor license approvals, and item number 8, which are the liquor license renewals. Item number 9 is a legislative directive regarding snow and ice removal as an element of rental license tiering processes. Item number 10 is an appropriation for city-owned land at 10 and 30 West Lake Street. Item 11 is an RFP for city-owned land at 2600 Minnehaha. This is passing a resolution supporting an RFP for this site with a non-law enforcement focus. Item number 12 is a utility easement vacation. Item 13 is setting a public hearing for August 8th for the Transportation Rideshare Worker Ordinance Protections Ordinance, and item 14 is regulation of tobacco dealer licenses at commercial malls, setting the public hearing for November 6th. I will note that we are going to also postpone today item 814. So item 8, liquor license renewals, item 14 specifically. Are there any items anyone on the committee would like to pull for discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those items are approved. We'll then move to the public hearing agenda, starting with item number 1, which is Taberna at 3126 Lake Street West. Mr. Olson is here. Thank you, sir, for being here.
Thank you, Chair Goodman and committee members. I'm Joseph Olson, Inspector with Business Licenses and Consumer Services. Today I'm presenting an application from the restaurant Taberna, owned by Taberna LLC, to upgrade to limited entertainment. This business is located at 3126 West Lake Street in Ward 7. The current license is restaurant with on-sale liquor and Sunday sales with no live entertainment. Taberna has been operating at this location since 2019, and the proposed hours of this operation will be Monday through Thursday from 11 a.m. to midnight, on Friday and Saturday from 11 until 2 a.m. And on the exterior, where the business has outdoor patio seating, it will be 11 to 11, and on Sundays from 11 to 9. On July 5th, we sent notices to property owners within 600 feet of the premises. Notices were also sent to the Cedar Isles Dean Neighborhood Association, the Uptown Association, and Council Member Lisa Goodman. We have received 3 comments in support of the new entertainment upgrade and 3 in opposition if the entertainment occurs outside. And it does not occur outside. It is indoor entertainment. There have been no complaints, 311 calls or police calls associated with the business. And the License and Consumer Services Division recommends approval of the on-sale liquor with Sunday sales and limited entertainment. And this concludes my presentation. At this time, I stand for questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. We'll see if there's any questions from members of the committee. There are no questions. However, I'd like the record to reflect that we've been joined by Council Members Ellison and Chugtai. Seeing no questions, we will open the public hearing on item number 1 and invite Chris Corlett to speak.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Corlett. I'm one of the owners of Taberna. I just want to thank everyone for their time today and allowing us to be here. We're here today because we're really excited about what this license would provide, some new opportunities for our business. We've been around for 4 years and have definitely gone through a journey of experiences with COVID and everything else. And I think that this license allows us to give the community, the neighbors who have asked us to provide new services and thus being entertainment, to provide them the experience that they're hoping to have with us. So we're excited for the hopeful approval, and we're looking forward to being able to provide a better business and experience over there for everybody. So thank you again for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
here today. Is there anyone else here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Rainville.
Madam Chair, thank you. I'd like to move approval for item number 1, the license to Taberna.
Further comments or questions on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. Thank you for coming down today. On to item number 2, which is a land sale at 19 East 26th Street to Partners in Property Commercial Land Trust. Lisa, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Goodman and committee members. My name is Lisa Passes, and I'm a senior project coordinator in CPAD Business Development. And today, I am before you with a city council related to the sale of the city property owned at 19 East 26th Street. This is a tax forfeited property located off the Nicollet Avenue corridor and was purchased from Hennepin County in 2019. The property is a two-story building in good structural condition with a 1,300 square foot commercial space on the first floor, a one-bedroom apartment on the second floor, and a full basement. This property was identified as a promising candidate for a commercial land trust pilot. In a commercial land trust model, the land trust retains commercial ownership of the land while entering into a long-term ground lease with the business that buys the building. The commercial land trust model can provide stable occupancy costs and storefront ownership for locally owned small businesses. It can also create opportunities for wealth creation to close historic racial and gender equity gaps in commercial property ownership. Partnership in Property Commercial Land Trust, also known as PIPCLT, is a newly formed Minneapolis-based commercial land trust. PIPCLT is partnering with a small business owner and pursuing the purchase and the redevelopment of the property. PIPCLT is an independent 501c3 nonprofit organization that incorporated in May of 2022 out of the City of Lakes Community Land Trust and its 2018 Commercial Land Trust Initiative. Staff is recommending, through today's action, that PIPCLT purchase the property from the city and partner with a small business, Affinity Residential Care, on the ground lease of the land and purchase of the building. PIPCLT will retain the land, renovate the building facade facing the 26th Street and the single first floor commercial tenant into a vanilla shell for Affinity Care. The total project is estimated to cost approximately $755,000. The project needs an additional $95,280 to complete the planned vanilla shell construction, and the city will not close on the sale until the project is fully funded. The commercial tenant is Affinity Residential Care, a for-profit home and community-based service provider, bringing quality of life services to individuals with mental and physical disabilities. Under their ground lease with PIPCLT, Affinity Care will operate out of the first floor space for use as a licensed, culturally responsive day service facility for adults providing daytime support needs, training, and habilitation, and the second floor will be renovated as a residential units. The city will sell the property at 19 East 26th Street to PIPCLT for the purchase price of $180,000. The purchase price includes a $200,000 write-down from the fair reuse value of $380,000, which is based on an appraisal. The sale of this property and the write-down of the purchase price below the fair reuse value is in compliance with the city's land disposition policy. The city did not receive any public comments during the public hearing notice period. This completes my presentation. I'm happy to respond to any questions the committee members might have. I also have Lisa Perry from PIPCLT today, and she can also comment on the project.
So thank you so much, Ms. Passes, for your report. You did a great job. And now I know this has been a lot of work, and we're really appreciative of you. We'll see if there are any questions for staff. Councilmember Ellison.
I probably have more I want to say, but I was just out of curiosity, is this the first PIPCLT land sale that we're partnering with?
Correct.
Awesome. Really exciting. I'll have more to say, but I want to let other people speak.
Fantastic. So thank you for your presentation. We will open the public hearing on item number 2, which is a land sale, and invite Felicia Perry to come on up and speak should she choose. Welcome, Ms. Perry.
Greetings and thank you, Madam President, and hello, everyone else. My name is Felicia Perry. I'm the Business and Commercial Real Estate Manager at Partnership and Property Commercial Land Trust. Henceforward, I'll call PIP CLT. It's a long title. I'm here to represent our nonprofit organization in support of moving forward with the land sale and the purchase of the commercial property at 19 East 26th Street from the city of Minneapolis. As most of you know, or may not know actually, because we're new and what we're doing is actually new, and if approved today, it will be historic because it'll be the first time you all have done a deal with the Commercial Land Trust. The organization, pardon me, I have a child messaging me right in the middle of this. Our organization preserves long-term affordable commercial spaces through community-driven ownership of land. Neighborhoods where local businesses of Black, Indigenous, and people of color can grow and thrive, where residents can claim spaces through decision-making power and ownership of land. Together, we hope to build a vibrant and human-centered economy. PIP CLT's core constituencies are business owners of color, and one of those businesses we vetted and partnered with, Zania, who's trying to find council chambers right now, but Zania of Affinity Care, she's a woman. She's a Black woman, and this is a BIPOC-owned business that provides assisted living, supportive housing, as you all have heard, to folks with disabilities, whether it's mental illness, substance abuse disorder, and our seniors and our elders. We understand that this commercial land trust model is new. So we appreciate you all in going through this learning experience, Lisa, through going through this learning experience and for your diligence in seeing it through. The city's write-down of this property is making this project affordable and commercial real estate ownership a reality for Zania. I want to thank all council members in attendance and who I might have spoken to outside of this space, as well as all of the city staff who have gone along in this journey and have been involved in supporting the Commercial Land Trust Initiative, as well as BIPOC ownership of commercial real estate. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Perry. We appreciate all of the work you've gone through, especially since it's a pilot, trying to be the first, which is really great. So thank you.
Yeah, kudos goes to our executive director, Dominique Jones, who is the founder of this organization. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Were there any questions?
No, it's a public hearing, so we don't take any questions.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That's
Thank
okay.
you.
You get to speak. Is there anyone else here who'd like to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Chugtai.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know this project has been a long time in the making, and want to start with thanking staff for presenting on this today and for the years of hard work that has gone into bringing this item to this stage now. And also want to thank PIP CLT and Affinity Care for going through, again, this really long and at times very difficult process to create this new and visionary project and model and make it a reality. Our office has had a really wonderful time working with Dominique and Zania over the last several months, and I am excited to move this project or this item for approval today.
On Councilmember Chugtai's motion, Councilmember Ellison.
I just wanted to speak real quickly about how exciting this project is. Not only on its own merits is it really exciting, but it's really exciting to see it sort of become a part of how we're supporting affordable commercial space in general. We're creating a lot of tools, and this is a new one that I'm hopeful is going to have a lot of success. And so I want to thank Felicia and your team. I know you're part of a broader team that's making this happen, but I know you and I know your work, and I know that seeing you be a part of this gives me confidence that there's not only going to be a tremendous amount of due diligence, but a tremendous amount of integrity in how this moves forward as well. And so just thank you for that. And we are, when we do stuff like this, we are meeting a lot of different needs that the city has in activating space like this. And so there's a whole lot of reasons that we might write down the cost of a space. We're not doing that just to fill a space. We're doing it to sort of meet a mission of the city. And so I want to commend my colleague. And so I obviously am going to be supporting my colleague's motion. The hater in me wishes that we were talking about a corridor in North Minneapolis. But I'm sure that's soon to come. And so just congratulations to everyone. And I'm excited to support this.
Any other comments? Seeing none, all in favor of Councilmember Chughtai's motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimously approved, and thank you, ladies, for all your hard work on this. We'll now move to item number 3. There are 30 individual land sales or exclusive development rights within this item. Do not worry, we are not going to do 30 individual public hearings. I have been advised that we can do one public hearing, so we'll have our wonderful staff, Kevin Canese, go through all of the presentation that has been put in front of you. They also have agreed to meet with anyone who needed information in advance, and then we will take up the staff recommendation. So I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Canese, and thank you. This was a lot. And that must say something about the good work you're doing and the interest in getting this money out the door. So go ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you, Chair Goodman and council members. As Chair Goodman said, my name is Kevin Canese. I'm a supervisor on our housing team in CPET, and we're very excited to bring forth the recommendations for sale of city-owned property, and then also financing through tour programs through Minneapolis Homes today. So what is Minneapolis Homes? So it's an umbrella term that we use for a variety of housing products that we provide through CPED, with a focus on helping households access homeownership, create affordable housing units, and sustain homeownership. Today I'm going to be focusing on our CREATE strategy, which is focused on selling city-owned property and financing it for affordable ownership development. Minneapolis Homes over the last 3 years has shown a rate of service of 75% to Black, Indigenous, people of color households, and Black households in particular have the largest homeownership disparity and are also the largest demographic that we serve through our programs. If it were not for our city investments, our homeownership disparity would be even worse than it is today. And these investments open affordable homeownership opportunities to moderate income households who are increasingly being shut out of the housing market. And it also provides a pathway for developers to participate in city development projects and build their capacity. The recommendations in this RCA itself focus on the creation of new affordable housing units that meet city goals set out by the 2040 Comp Plan. The goals form the criteria for how we evaluate applications and the recommendations that we're making today. Minneapolis has centered the Comp Plan goal of eliminating racial disparities, and in particular with this program in homeownership. The disparities that exist are due to centuries of public policy in our country that have excluded BIPOC households from accessing wealth. And in 2020, we conducted a study to quantify what eliminating that disparity would be. In that study, we quantified that it would mean helping approximately 13,000 BIPOC renters become homeowners. The majority of renters in our city have incomes, the majority of BIPOC renters in our city, which is the green on this chart, have incomes below 50% of area median income due to economic disparities that exist. Virtually no housing units, which is the blue on this chart, are available for homeownership at that income level. This data shows that the vast majority of homes are sold in Minneapolis at levels that are not affordable to most households. Reducing racial disparities in homeownership requires deeper affordability gap subsidy in order to make those homes affordable. This reality gets worse each year as home values grow and grow faster than incomes themselves. The pandemic exacerbated cost increases to the point where a single family home is now 35% more expensive than it was to build before the pandemic. When we compare that to what a homebuyer can afford, which is the amount in orange on this chart, there's a significant need for subsidy, and that need increases as we serve lower income households. In most areas of the city, it actually costs more to build a home than it sells for or its fair market value. So the city invests project gap, which is the green on this chart, so that that project can actually proceed. If it were not for that project gap, highly unlikely and economically infeasible for that project to happen. If a home buyer needs lower first mortgage or needs financing to help support them purchasing that home because they can only afford a mortgage at the affordable price, which is orange on this slide, the city invents an affordability gap. If we're providing deep subsidy, then we do that through our perpetually affordable housing program, which effectively functions by making a one-time upfront investment that stays with the property through each transaction. The city property that we own is concentrated in specific neighborhoods due to a number of things, including redlining, foreclosure crisis, and the Minneapolis tornado. We help return these properties to productive uses that stabilize neighborhoods and also benefit community members through 2 program pathways included in this council action. This year, we're recommending the sale, financing, or exclusive development rights for projects in 7 council wards, which are spread throughout North, South, and Northeast Minneapolis. Developing these properties helps provide stability in neighborhoods as well as increases the city's overall tax base. And since the program was created in 2017, we've helped reduce the inventory of single-family properties from 625 parcels to 344 today. As part of our process for land sale, we notify neighborhoods of potential property sales. The city notice of funding availability marketed 2 program opportunities, the property purchase program and the financing program. The property purchase program focuses on selling city-owned vacant buildings and lots without financing, and those projects are required to meet one of 2 requirements for housing under the Unified Housing Policy, depending on if it's rental or homeownership. Our financing program provides subsidy for affordable ownership units sold to buyers that are at or below 80% of area median income in 1 to 20 unit developments. Projects through Minneapolis Homes Financing can happen on city-owned property, which is the majority of these today, and also on privately owned project sites. Due to market conditions, there were few offers received without subsidy, as the vast majority of developments needed subsidy in order to be feasible. I previously mentioned how market conditions have changed quite a bit since the pandemic, so construction costs are making projects more expensive to build. And then mortgage financing similarly has increased so that the buyer's ability to afford a home is significantly impacted. The vast majority of applications received through this application process requested financing. We received $42 million of requests for a budget just short of $6 million. Despite these challenges, there's a historic opportunity with the recent state legislative session that appropriated $1 billion for housing initiatives. One of the programs that received in a significant infusion of capital is a program that also funds projects through Minneapolis Homes. Given this opportunity, we as staff are proposing a 2-part approach, which is approving the property sales and providing the financing that we can for those projects now, and then applying for subsidy from the state funding program for the remainder of viable projects and awarding those projects exclusive development rights in the interim. The strategy recognizes the work that developers put in drafting their applications and also gives them a commitment to a city project site. So I'm first going to cover the recommendations through our property purchase program. So we're recommending 3 projects. These are all vacant buildings and are recommended for sale to be developed into ownership occupancy. And now I'm going to touch on our Minneapolis Homes Financing Program recommendations and the requirements under that program that covers the majority of the projects today. So Minneapolis Homes Financing right-sizes our subsidy based on serving 3 different income tiers, so 61% to 80% AMI, 41% to 60% AMI, and then households that are below 40% of area median income. We do the affordable or set the affordable price based on the middle of those income tiers, so a household that is making 70%, 50%, or 30% of the area median income. And the affordable price is based on those assumptions. The figures that are depicted on this slide show the income tiers and then the subsidy limits that were published during the RFP process. This application round included a sustainability certification incentive that funds the development of either passive certified homes or homes that are built to the net zero standard. So these are ultra efficient home designs. And we're recommending one project for funding through that incentive through this program. Minneapolis Homes review criteria is used in determining which projects to fund now and which to grant exclusive development rights. We review projects and score them using a review committee that includes Minneapolis Homes staff from our business development DTAP program, as well as community financing partners from Minnesota Housing, Hennepin County, Land Bank Twin Cities, and the Met Council. This review includes a feasibility and capacity analysis, and we score projects using the approved review criteria for proposals. In past rounds, this was enough to make recommendations, partially due in part to the amount of funding that was available. In this round, we received a significantly higher response than we ever have, and as a result, we had to add a second tier for how we awarded or recommending awarding of projects. Now I'm going to cover the projects that are recommended through Minneapolis Homes financing. So we're recommending projects that require additional funding commitments in order to be feasible given market conditions, and that are what are displayed on this slide. So that's townhome development, and then 3 projects from Greater Metropolitan Housing Corporation that are also being built to passive standards. We received some project requests for the redevelopment of vacant city-owned buildings that required subsidy as well, and that's what's depicted on this slide and then the next slide. Our next tier is funding projects from developers that have demonstrated capacity through the application process. And one of those developers is here today to speak on behalf of their project. And then finally, we're recommending financing for projects on privately owned sites. One thing to point out about the program is we allow for applications on privately owned sites. The intention there was to allow and expand the number of projects we do throughout the city since our land is concentrated in specific neighborhoods. And then finally, we're recommending exclusive development rights for 18 projects. The intention is for us to apply for state funding to help move these projects forward. And if awarded funding, then we would come back to City Council for land sale recommendations and funding recommendations next year. And in summary, this would result in 87 units of ownership housing through the program and supports 25 developers in redeveloping projects. And one last thing to touch on is since 2021, which is when we made changes to Minneapolis Homes, we've gone through the process of awarding 220 units if we approve the ones today of affordable homeownership projects since 2021. And with that, I will take any questions that you have for me.
Thank you so much for that very informative report. We'll see if there are any questions for you about your report. Councilmember Osman.
Oh, thank you so much, and it's a great program. I really thank you and the staff for making this happen and working with the developers. My question is, first of all, Northside have seen so much love in this list, so that's a great thing. My question is, how could the average families in our city that are low income apply this kind of housing, or can they get into it? Are they, I don't know how that process works. I'd like to share that information with residents.
Yes, Councilmember Osman, I'd be happy to explain. Our program, Minneapolis Homes, not only finances development of projects, but also provides funding for homebuyer education and counseling services. So that's really our strategy of helping homeowners access, or households access homeownership. So typically that's through funding nonprofit and organizations throughout the city that provide pre-purchase and homebuyer counseling. And then when projects are redeveloped, they are listed on the MLS. And so they're available to have an open house, and then also we market them on our city webpage as well. So households could visit the Minneapolis Homes webpage, which has its own banner webpage, and I'm happy to share what that is after this meeting. And it displays the projects that are under development so that they're aware of which projects are coming.
Councilmember Rainville.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for all your hard work. I just have a question. As the state sends more resources into us, which is wonderful, what is the pipeline for us? Are there other properties that we would purchase? Are there other empty lots that are in? How much more can we do?
Yes, Councilmember Rainbow. So we apply to the state for project gap financing and affordability gap financing. So it's financing that fills the gap to develop the unit. Traditionally, when we're acquiring property, we're using federal resources such as CDBG. And we partner with the county to acquire tax forfeitures and then market those properties through this program. So we're really combining kind of a number of different strategies and then marketing them all through Minneapolis Homes to try to redevelop those projects.
So there's lots of opportunity.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Ellison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the report. This is great. I always love seeing the ways in which we are increasing perpetually affordable homeownership and homeownership affordable homeownership opportunities for our residents. One of the things that I'm curious about, not that it's the city's obligation alone, is how are we doing? How's the state doing, I guess, as a whole, in closing the homeownership gap? Because I know a lot of our programs are sort of, maybe not explicitly, but sort of, we're trying to address that gap, and just kind of wondering, year after year, I especially see this is like second year in a row, at least, that we're seeing a huge number of North Side homes going this direction. Do we have a sense of the impact that we're having?
That's a great question, Councilmember Ellison. And I'll be honest, some of this is more not hard numbers and more my perception from working in the space. The pandemic set us back and definitely created challenges for homeownership. Mm-hmm. And I would say that the recent state appropriations are a recognition that there's a lot more work to do. So some of the programs that were approved by the state legislature include some specific targeted down payment assistance programs, mm-hmm. which we're planning to leverage through Minneapolis Homes as well, so that we can help households access homeownership and address that homeownership disparity.
Yeah, thank you. And I just kind of, this is more of a comment, less of a question, but on that slide, unless I'm the affordability gap and the development gap slide, it was a little bit like of a, not that we don't know this, but a little bit of a shock to see that if you're making around 80% of the area median income, like homeownership is out of reach, is becoming increasingly out of reach. And so, this is obviously one solution towards that. But yeah, would love to figure out how we can get, as Councilmember Rainville was saying, the state to sort of get even more involved than it already is to support that. But I think this is great. Just wanted to ask those questions and make those comments. But I'm really excited, especially, as a North Side council member. I know they're not all Ward 5 properties, but it's always exciting to see us putting so much effort into solving issues on the North Side. So thank you.
Thank you.
Other comments for staff? Seeing none, thank you so much for your report. I also just want to call out Roxanne Kimball and Alfred Port and the others on the team. No one does this work alone. Thank you for your hard work. We are going to open the public hearing on item number 3. There are 3 people signed up to speak. We welcome you to come up and speak for 2 minutes each, starting with Alex Frank, followed by Greg Shaw and Chad Pittman. Sir, thank you for being here today.
Good afternoon, committee members. I'm Alex Frank. I'm the owner of Magnolia Homes. My company focuses on creating missing middle housing solutions. Since 2016, I've partnered with the city of Minneapolis, Minneapolis Homes program to build home ownership opportunities in North Minneapolis. We are excited to continue our partnership with building affordable workforce condos in North Minneapolis, targeting 60 to 80% area median income homeowners.
Thank you so much for being here, and thanks for the work in the city. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Greg Shaw. Mr. Shaw, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, City Council and CPED staff. Thank you for this opportunity to be here today. I represent the company M2 Progression Development, and my business partner, Mike Murrow, is also a co-owner. We are developers excited about the opportunity in Minneapolis, and we are trying to create a paradigm shift and move away from the negative connotations of affordable housing programs. We want to create houses that are affordable and also have equity built in as well. We want to create that social equity as well as housing equity. And with the subsidies that is being recommended for our company, we can do just that. I'll keep it short. We have a model, what is enough, and we stand by that model, and our desire is to build these homes that will provide value, the social equity and home equity. And so when a home buyer purchases a home from our company, not only do they get keys of home ownership, they also get built-in equity. And by receiving these funds, we can do just that. So we're excited about the opportunity. We want to penetrate and be a solution to the affordable housing deficit. And thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for being here today, sir. Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Chad Pittman? Welcome. You have 2 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Chad Dittman, Land Development Director at Twin Cities Habitat for Humanity. For those that don't know, I've lurked these halls for 17 years now, and this is the first application that I personally didn't submit for purchase of lots from the city. My colleague Noah had the pleasure of doing that, but isn't able to make it today. First off, I'd just like to say thanks to the staff who have been so excellent to work with for years now, and for the Herculean effort that went into this process this year, which we went ahead and tried to complicate on one of our lots in particular to accelerate the timeline. Sorry about that. We can't say enough in appreciation for the city stepping up in a huge way to support affordable home ownership, which is just such an important factor in economic and family stability. It is monumental for folks to be able to purchase a house that provides stability, that provides a chance for wealth creation, and all the other benefits that arise out of it. So we're excited to continue our partnership with the city. For these lots, we'll be partnering with the private landowner, which is American Indian Community Development Corporation. So we'll be partnering with them, obviously on the sale, but then on the marketing in that community. And then also with City of Lakes Community Land Trust, we will be land trusting these as well. And to speak to Mr. Ellison's comment about closing the gap, there's a gap in the American Indian community, obviously, but Habitat right now is particularly focused on closing the gap with foundational Black households. And I'm running out of time. Last year, we sold 23 houses to foundational Black households, which was a 53% increase from the year before. So we think we're doing a good job, and we're going to continue that effort. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dittman, for being here today, and thank Noah on our behalf as well. We'll see if there's anyone else here to speak to this issue. Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'll ask Ms. Brock, do you need me to read these out loud, each address and the organization?
Chair Goodman, no, you do not.
Okay. Councilmember Ellison, did you want to do that? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move item 3, which is a package of financing and property sales for, as you can see, about, well, exactly 30 properties. I also just want to note, I just think the strategy by staff was great. I love the fact that you weren't going to let some of these good people go, that we were going to work with them and the state. That's exactly what CPED is all about, not just saying let's help people, but that's actually then helping them get through the state process. I'm just really proud to be associated with you on this. I think it's a really great way to move forward, and it kind of lays out who we will be able to advocate for yet this year with the state. And so I'm just really appreciative of that out of the box thinking that I know all of these various home builders will also be appreciative of. Further comments and questions? Anyone? Councilmember Ellison.
I'll just co-sign the thank you to staff. Obviously we've got a lot of builders and buyers who are doing great work in the community, but you all's leadership is just, it can't be noted enough. So thank you guys. And it's always important I always like to highlight, Elfric, your leadership, but also your shirts, your fits, man. They're so good. It's so good. So I plan to be like you one day, and I'm obviously going to support your motion, Chair.
Thank you. On the motion to approve item 3, which is 30 land sales, financing packages, and exclusive development rights for home ownership in the city, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. Thank you all for being here for that item today. We will now move to our quasi-judicial portion of the agenda. Item number 4 is an order to raise and remove a building at 2815 14th Avenue South. This is a quasi-judicial hearing regarding the findings and recommendations of the Nuisance Condition Process Review Panel, for which this committee has final authority to determine whether or not the subject building is a nuisance condition as set forth in the ordinance, and whether the building should be rehabilitated or raised. The committee has been provided with the full record of the matter, including the report and recommendations from the Nuisance Condition Process Review Panel. The committee may hear arguments from staff and from building owners or the owner's representative, but shall take no further evidence not already part of the record or otherwise presented in accordance with the requirements of Chapter 249. So Mr. Starry is here to speak to this issue. And this is considering adopting the findings of the Nuisance Condition Process Review Panel to uphold the inspection director's order to raise and remove this building. Mr. Starry, thank you for being here today.
Unfortunately, Chair Goodman, Mr. Brian Starry, it's Scott Bacchus with the Department of Regulatory Services. Good afternoon, committee. I come before you today to consider the adoption of the recommendations of the Nuisance Condition Process Review Panel regarding the fire damage property at 2815 14th Avenue South. The 2815 property sustained heavy fire damage on July 20th, 2022, and was referred to the vacant building registration on September 9th, 2022. Staff determined that the property was substandard, presented danger to the public, met the definition of a nuisance per Minneapolis Code of Ordinance, Chapter 249, and was issued a director's order to demolish on March 10th, 2023. That order was appealed by the owner, Stephen Meldal, on the grounds that the fire was initiated at 2817 14th Avenue South and spread to the 2815 property. This is a slight correction to the RCA that mentioned that the 2815 property had been broken into and set on fire. A hearing was held before the Nuisance Condition Process Review Panel on June 14th. The panel heard the matter and recommended that the property be demolished so that it no longer constitutes a nuisance condition. That concludes my presentation. I stand for comments.
Are there any questions for staff on this item? We received an extensive packet of information about what it took to get to this point, so I just want to make sure all questions are answered. Thank you so much for the report. We will open the public hearing on item number 4, which is in order to raise and remove the building at 2815 14th Avenue South. Is the owner or the owner's representative present today? Is the owner or owner's representative present? Seeing that the owner's representative is not present, I'm going to close the public hearing and move approval of the staff recommendation. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. We'll now move on to item number 5, which is the demolition of a historic resource appeal at 5005 Lyndale Avenue South, and Ms. Q is here to give this report. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Goodman and council members. My name is Erin Kay, and I'm a city planner in the Historic Preservation section of CPED. I'm here today to present an appeal of the Heritage Preservation Commission's June 20, 2023 approval of a demolition of historic resource application to demolish the property located at 5005 Lyndale Avenue South in the potential Washburn Park Residential Historic District. The property is located at the southeast corner of the intersection of 50th Street West and Lyndale Avenue South, outlined in teal on this map. In May, the applicant requested a historic review letter. CPED staff determined that the subject property is a potential historic resource for its association with the potential Washburn Park Residential Historic District. I'll begin with a brief overview about the potential historic district and then summarize the application and appeal before you. The area was platted in 1886 and planned as a garden suburb by a group of prominent businessmen. Renowned landscape architect Horace W.S. Cleveland designed the layout of the neighborhood with curvilinear streets and relatively large lots, taking into account its location near Minnehaha Creek and its hilly topography. Staff refers to this area as a potential historic district because it has not been formally designated as a local historic district. Although a draft nomination was written in 1981 to list the potential district in the National Register of Historic Places, it is not listed. Studies have been done at various points over the last 4 decades, including in the 1990s and in 2005, during a historic resources inventory of southwest Minneapolis completed by a consultant for the city. The only outcome has been that the Minnesota State Historic Preservation Office, or SHPO, has determined the potential district to be eligible for listing in the National Register. This means that it has historical significance and retains integrity to convey that significance. The 2005 study also recommended the potential district for local designation under Criterion 5 as a significant landscape design and/or pattern of development, but no action has been taken to designate this potential district. The applicant is proposing demolition of the property at 5005 Lyndale Avenue South, which consists of a house built in 1912. Here are photos of the house's front elevation on the west, the south elevation, the north elevation, and the east elevation. The property also has a garage built in 1917. The applicant is planning to build a 4-story residential building. The proposed development will be reviewed by the Planning Commission at a later date and is not part of this application. According to records at SHPO, the period of significance for the National Register eligible district is 1886 to 1959, and the subject property is considered a contributing resource. For the demolition of historic resource applications, staff found that the subject property does not have individual historical significance under any of the 7 criteria for local designation, and that it does retain integrity. Staff also found that the potential Washburn Park Residential Historic District has historical significance under Criterion 3 for neighborhood identity, Criterion 4 for architecture, and Criterion 5 for landscape design, and that the potential district retains integrity. For the destruction of a historic resource, one of 2 findings must be met. Under the first finding, CPED found that the demolition is not necessary to correct an unsafe or dangerous condition. Under the second finding, CPED found that there are no reasonable alternatives to demolition. The subject property is not individually listed in or eligible for listing in the National Register, and the subject property does not appear to be eligible for designation as an individual landmark. Considering the subject property within the district or potential district, staff found that it is not exemplary of the potential district's historical significance. The subject property is located on the western edge of the potential district boundary, identified by a blue star here. It is located in a section of traditionally gridded streets, not along the curvilinear streets for which the area is known. This section also appears to have been subdivided in the early 1900s in order to increase density in the neighborhood, when the initial experiment of the garden suburb with large lots was not as successful as planners had hoped. It does not exhibit known characteristics of any architectural style, including the period revival styles for which the potential district is known. Therefore, CPED found that the demolition of the subject property will not significantly impact the historical significance or integrity of the potential Washburn Park Residential Historic District. At the June 20th, 2023 HPC meeting, the commission discussed the length of time during which this area has been studied and the lack of subsequent action. The commission also discussed the accuracy of the proposed boundary for the potential district, as shown here. Ultimately, the HPC adopted staff findings and approved the demolition of historic resource application. The appeal submitted by a group of neighbors asserts the significance and integrity of the potential district and requests that this application should be denied and that a designation study should be commenced in order to determine if this potential district should be designated. Staff has received 5 comments from the public that oppose approval of the demolition of historic resource application, which have been provided to you. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to stay for questions, and the appellant is also here to make a statement.
Great, thank you, Ms. Kay. Sorry about that. I want to see first if there are any questions for you. I do have a question for your staff, the manager of your staff. Kimberly, would you be open to answering a couple questions? But let's see if there's any questions for staff. Okay, thank you so much for your report. I'm just wondering, you guys have a full work plan. And so the potential study and designation study is not something that's on your work plan for this year, next year, or the year after, correct?
That's correct, Madam Chair. So this district, as you can see on this map, is exceptionally large. When looking at staff resources that would need to be dedicated to such a district, it's not something that we would likely be able to do in-house. We would have to look at obtaining a consultant through contract in order to get that work done. It hasn't risen as a priority to this point because there's not been a threat to the district. We're not seeing a significant number of teardowns in this area. The application before you today is the first one we've seen, I think, in my 15 years here at the city.
Okay, and I thought I heard Ms. Kay say that this was something that was identified in 1981, is that correct? And have there been any attempts since 1981 to take on this massive designation study?
There have not. So it's shown up a few times as areas of the city have been studied, but this is not something that's ever gone beyond just a recognition of an area that warrants further study for potential significance.
Okay, great, thank you. Are there any other questions for Ms. Holeen? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Seeing no further questions, we are going to open the public hearing. There are 8 people signed up to speak. You each have 2 minutes, and you don't need to go in the order that you signed up, but since there's a lot, I'll go ahead and just call your names if that would be easier. And that would start with Ms. Ireland, followed by Ms. Arana, and then Mr. Harwood to start. You each can please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and you have 2 minutes. Because the appellants get to go first, we'll let you go first.
My name's Michelle Ireland. I'm a neighbor. I live a short block away. I am in favor of having the house demolished. I feel like my impression is that the concerns about having the house demolished have more to do with not wanting to have the development put in, and from my perspective, the house is kind of a scruffy, unremarkable house, and it's on a busy intersection. It doesn't seem like it, would warrant, a glamorous house on the house on the empty lot part of it, and which I think would make sense. I personally am in favor of higher housing density, and don't feel like we should just shove it all to less desirable neighborhoods. And so I am in favor of the demolishing the house.
Thank you so much for your testimony. We'll have Ms. Arana, followed by Mr. Harwood and Mr. Javit. Ms. Javit. I'm sorry if I've gotten your names wrong. I have to go by everyone's handwriting.
It's kind of fast. Good afternoon. I would like to talk to the facts that there are reasonable.
Could you state your name and address for the record,
Gretchen
please?
Arana, sorry, 605 West 50th Street.
Go ahead, ma'am.
I would like to talk to the fact that there are reasonable alternatives to the demolition of this property. They do exist. The property is significant. It's been there for over 100 years in our neighborhood, and many families have lived there. It's the entry point to Tangletown, and it has historical value. And it's been there for over 100 years, and it's part of our history. The integrity of the property is very high. The home was well-maintained over the years with remodeling projects to increase its value and worth to families that have lived there. The previous owners put in over $55,000 of renovations and improvements to keep up the maintenance. And the economic value and usefulness of the existing structure is robust to the past and current residents. Currently, it's being rented out, and in the past, it's served as an asset to every family that has lived there over the decades. It can remain a residential home and has property value to those who own it. So reasonable alternatives outside of the demolition absolutely exist for this property. At the bare minimum, the committee should at least put a stay on the decision until the historical study of the neighborhood has been completed.
Thank you so much for your testimony. James Harwood, followed by Jamie Jawa.
Can I ask one clarifying question real quick? I thought we had 10 minutes as the appellant to actually speak and potentially give a presentation.
You are welcome to do that. Are you the actual appellant?
Yep, I'm part of the appellant group. I was co-signed the letter with others, so.
Okay, great. You can have 10 minutes for everyone on your team.
Thank you, Chair Goodman and council members.
We'll have the clerk set the timer for 10 minutes. That is true. I didn't see who the appellant was, so.
Well, again, thank you, Chair Goodman, council members, for listening to our appeal today. As I mentioned, I'm one of the signatories of the appeal with many neighbors here. In our appeal in discussion today is really focused on two specific reasons we feel this application should be denied. First is following up on what Ms. Kay mentioned in terms of there are two findings that need to be addressed, or one of two findings need to be addressed. The destruction is necessary to connect an unsafe or dangerous condition on the property, which I believe staff said isn't the case, but also that the applicant is to provide documentation that there are no reasonable alternatives to the destruction. And the staff report concluded that there are no reasonable alternatives to demolition, and we disagree with that statement. As Gretchen just mentioned, the house was just sold in 2022, currently being utilized as a rental. It has received a new roof, new eaves, both in the last 2 years. It appears to be well maintained, original woodwork and hardwood floors throughout the building. It shows no visible signs of settlement, cracking, foundation, or structural issues. We were able to obtain pictures and all this information just utilizing the actual listing from the MLS from last year. And there's been no information provided that would support that there's no reasonable alternative to demolition. It refers, I believe the staff report refers to dilapidated finishes, and that is a cosmetic issue, which is hardly a barrier economically or a basis for demolition. So for those reasons, we don't agree with the staff finding and no reasonable alternative to demolition. The second point is something that you had asked some specific questions about, Chair Goodman, about the designation study that we believe should be done here just to determine if this is or is not a historic district. Picking up that study would potentially alter those boundaries. It would potentially look at and determining, is that a smaller area? Is this entire area historic? Is none of it a historic district? It would provide a lot of clarity to both this development and future developers who may be coming in here looking to partner with the city and achieve some of those development goals that the city has. And as stated in our letter, hopefully you've all had a chance to read that, this appeal is not intended to be anti-development in nature, but just to provide clarity to developers and to the neighbors and homeowners here who've provided a lot of their own equity, a lot of their money, a lot of sweat equity and time, and completion of that study would really complement the city's existing plans. As I mentioned, provide clear understanding of process to all wanting to invest in the neighborhood. I don't have a lot of additional information to present today. I hope, like I said, you've had a chance to look at what we've provided to date. And I do want to thank Ms. Kay. She's been very responsive, and all of staff in terms of helping answering our questions and guiding us through what the process is. So with that, that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. So since we're a bit out of order here, I was going to give everybody a chance to speak, so there's no one who's not going to get to speak. And I maybe will, since you were speaking on behalf of the appeal, we maybe should have the person who's the applicant speak, and then we'll have anyone's testimony that they would like.
Thank you.
We'll just see if the applicant is here. please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and then maybe explain to us why there's no reasonable alternative, since that's the standard.
My name is Todd Smith, and I'm a neighbor. I live in Tangletown as well, at 20 West Elmwood Place, and I'm the applicant for the demolition permit. This is sort of a strange circumstance for me, both in terms of previous experiences in front of the HPC and just as an intellectual exercise. The idea of a potential district is a tough concept to get your head around. It either is a historic district or it is not a historic district, and its potentiality should not raise the standard upon which qualification for an action, in this case demolition, should be questioned without anything being codified to that extent. And even if there was a district, this house would not be a part of it, as it exhibits none of the 7 criterion for such designation, as the HPC letter and ruling confirm. And whether referencing the 1981 boundaries or the 2005 boundaries of the proposed Washburn Park Residential District, either way it seems the characteristic of criterion 5 that would give rise to the district, that the property exemplifies a landscape design or development pattern distinguished by innovation, rarity, uniqueness, or quality of design or detail. It's not present at this site or any of the other sites close by. There are no curvilinear streets or changes in topography. It's just a regular street grid on a flat lot. And even if for some strange and inexplicable reason this site was included in the district, demolition would still be allowed as the site exhibits none of the other 6 characteristics or criterion. So even if there's going to be a study, that should not hold up the demolition of this particular site with no significance or integrity. Both of these issues are noted in the staff report on June 20th and subsequently the HPC's ruling on that date. Thank you.
You are welcome to use up the rest of your time, should you like to. I don't want you to feel like I've cut you off.
I'm sorry, Chairperson Goodman. I thought I only had 2 minutes. I was told that I was just going to be a public speaker.
Not a problem.
And I timed it. I figured that was all the time.
You did a good job with that. You were right on time. Thank you for your testimony. Okay, so there's a number of people signed up to speak. Why don't you stand in line? That way I won't have to pick winners and losers and first and second and get your names all wrong. And maybe you could tell me your name so I can cross you off as I see you on the
All
sign
right,
sheet.
good afternoon. My name is Mike Keene.
Thank you, Mike.
I live at 44 West Minneapolis Parkway, and I vehemently oppose the wanting this to become a historic district. It's burdensome for the rest of this. As one person had said earlier, this is a very large area, and it's impacting hundreds of people if it's to become a historic district. And so I just wanted to make it known that I am not for anything whatsoever becoming historic. There are historic structures in that area already, and they're beautiful. The water tower, a couple of beautiful homes. I'm not opposed to structures having historical significance. I'm all for it, but you cannot make a whole area. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Hello. Welcome.
Hey, my name's Tom Schneider. I'm a neighbor. I live at 100 Elmwood Place. I've been there for a couple of years, and I'm opposed to this motion just simply because the house that we moved into is a bit of a fixer-upper, and I look at the historical designation as having the potential to add additional red tape and additional costs. There's plenty of structures in the neighborhood and homes that would qualify, but I think the blanketing of this approach would add cost in areas where there are a number of homes that need revitalization but add unnecessary cost. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? And I just want to correct, we're not here to discuss if this is going to be a historic district. We're here to discuss whether or not this home is eligible for demolition based on certain criteria, one of which being it's in a potential historic district. You heard us ask staff if there was any capacity to do a historic district, and the answer is no. So just so we are clear on that. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Sue Ashwell, and I live at 624 West 50th Street, which is right across the street from this house that they want to tear down. My family has owned that property since like 1928. My mother was brought into that house from the hospital after she was born, and it stayed with the family. My dad bought it for my grandma, and then I bought it for my dad. So now I still own the property, and it's needs work, but it's not bad. We try to keep it so that it's totally and completely aesthetic with the rest of the neighborhood. I was really kind of prepared to come up here and tell you about all the history to make the historical element for all the people that know, but I'm not going to do that. One thing I just wanted to tell you, though, is if I have friends out of state that want to come in and find a place to live in Minneapolis, one of the things that I've always said to them is, this is a really nice neighborhood. I mean, this whole thing, because you've got walkability, you've got beautiful, beautiful homes and lots of landscaping and all that good stuff. So out of the Southwest Voices, I just wanted to read this little note into the record. If you find historic homes and neighborhoods attractive, you love the details, the history, and the charm, then you are sure to be interested in this neighborhood. With 59.4% of the residential real estate in the Tangletown neighborhood built no later than 1939, and some built considerably earlier, this neighborhood has a greater concentration of historic residences than 96.2% of all neighborhoods in America. In this regard, this neighborhood truly stands out as special. So as you can tell, it's very special to us and the people that have put this petition together. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? There are a few people on this list who haven't had an opportunity to speak. I would ask if you'd like to speak now, you're welcome to do so. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on either side? I don't want to say their sides, but either opinion? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and see if there are any questions or comments or motions. Okay, I am going to move to deny the appeal, and here's why. It's not a historic district. There aren't any resources to make it a historic district. Should the neighbors want to raise money to hire a consultant to come in and look at that and present it to our staff, that has happened before. It's happened in all sorts of places before, but right now it's not on a work plan. It's a large piece of area for our staff to prioritize, and I just don't see that happening anytime soon. So since it's not a historic district and this is just a potential historic building within a potential historic district, I think that it makes sense that we would allow the applicant to move forward. It's very unusual that the staff at the Heritage Preservation Commission and then the commission itself would ever vote to demolish anything. So I'm sure that they are sad about that, but they have to make their best professional judgment, and they've done that here. So that's another thing I just want to note, is that we have not been, we don't always overturn staff, and we don't always agree. We have to hear every story individually, and while I'm not happy about the idea of demolishing a potential historic resource within a potential historic district, it doesn't rise to the level of us essentially saying it is, even though it's not, in order to prevent something from happening, which is not what we're taking up today. Councilmember Ellison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just going to hop in and comment just to agree with you and agree with your motion. Sometimes we have so much context before the meeting that we kind of know where we're going to land. Here, we're discovering things really in real time, and I just think from hearing from learning about the site, I just agree that this doesn't rise to the level of being able to not allow the original applicant to move forward with the demolition. I think we should, in denying, we're basically upholding previous decision that was made.
The decision of staff verified by the Heritage Preservation Commission, yep. Correct. But this is the process that we set up, that we hear appeals, so I really respect the respectful dialogue that we had in the room today. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor of the chair's motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item has been denied. And then we'll move on to our sixth public hearing item, which is a certificate of appropriateness appeal on behalf of Armory Holdings with regard to repair and replacement of the signs and lighting at the Uptown Theater. And Mr. Scalacchi is giving that report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Goodman. Thanks again, Chair Goodman, and good afternoon, council members. My name is Rob Skalecki. I'm a senior city planner in the Historic Preservation section of planning. Today I'm presenting an appeal of the Heritage Preservation Commission's June 20th, 2023 decision to approve a certificate of appropriateness at the Uptown Theater located at 2900 Hennepin Avenue. The appellant is appealing the HPC's first two conditions of approval, requiring that 1, all 24 of the historic Uptown sign letters shall be retained, repaired, and reinstalled at the exterior of the building at their original location, placement, and configuration. And 2, that the proposed LED lighting features shall be installed in the repaired historic sign letters. The subject property is the Uptown Theater, an individually designated Minneapolis landmark. The property was built in 2 phases to complete the building recognized today. The original building was completed as the Lagoon Theater in 1916. The building was completely remodeled in 1939 to its current appearance as designed by Liebenberg and Kaplan, who were master architects. The city of Minneapolis recognizes the exterior of the building as significant for architecture, as an excellent example of a streamlined modern theater, and as the first movie theater in the country to have a 3-sided vertical tower sign. The Uptown Theater is a very rare example of a Minneapolis landmark that is designated in part for the architectural significance of its signage and sign structure. CPED and the HPC acknowledge that the historic sign structure and lighting have been altered since the building's remodel in 1939. A light box previously ran down the bottom of the 3-sided tower sign to the top of the marquee structure on the front, which is the east elevation. The light box structure was covered with metal panels in 1989. The original tower sign beacon cap, which was historically fully illuminated as well, was also removed in 1989. All of the subject 24 sign letters spelling Uptown 4 times, 3 times on the vertical tower, and 1 on the horizontal marquee, originally included face illumination by individual 25-watt incandescent light bulbs. And you can see all these former features here on the right compared to what was there previously, currently. Permit and photo evidence suggests that the individual letter face lighting was changed to neon at some point between 1945 and 1963. So the neon illuminated letters have since become associated with the Uptown Theater's appearance, even though this did not exist there historically. In late September 2022, CPED noticed that the historic tower signs had been removed, tower sign letters had been removed without approval, and orders to correct were issued by the zoning inspector requiring a preservation application to review the unpermitted work. All 3 sides of the vertical sign letters, totaling 18 letters, were removed without approval, and the 6 historic horizontal letters on the front face of the marquee were the only original letters that were not removed. You can see from the aerial photo views here the 3 sides of the vertical tower sign, as well as the horizontal marquee at the front elevation. The applicant had proposed to replace each of the 24 historic steel sign letters, which spell out Uptown in 4 locations, with new aluminum letters. The 18 vertical letters on the tower sign structure have already been removed without city approval. 6 of these letters are shown to have been repaired and installed on the property's interior without application review or approval. Other vertical letters were removed from the tower sign, and they have been repaired and shown to be placed on the interior, as staff mentioned, but it's not known how the damage depicted in some of the applicant's submitted photos was incurred. During the public hearing on June 20th, 2023, the applicant admitted to the HPC that 1 set of letters at that point from the tower sign may have already been discarded without approval, although this had not been stated in the applicant's submitted application materials. The applicant has proposed new sign letters to replace the historic letters. The proposed new aluminum sign letters were designed to match the dimensions and placement of the historic letters. Lighting changes will include replacement of all remaining incandescent lights, electrical socket components, and anything that's deteriorated beyond repair with illumination. The HPC voted to approve the application to allow for repairs and replacement of the signs and lighting at the Uptown Theater, and found that the staff conditions of approval were consistent with the landmark's design guidelines. With conditions of approval, the HPC concurred that the project would meet the exterior lighting and signage guidelines, provided the letters were repaired instead of replaced, since these are significant sign features that have already been shown by the applicant to be repairable. The theater's design guidelines state that selective removal of original building materials is allowed when original materials have deteriorated beyond repair or as part of an adaptive reuse project. CPED and the HPC noted the applicant had not presented enough evidence to show all letters can be replaced. Additionally, since the letters are individually installed on the signboard, the appropriate consideration for replacement of deteriorated beyond repair letters would be to replace the individual letters that cannot be repaired, and only those and not all 24. The applicant submitted photos suggest all letters can be repaired with common metal patching and rust mitigating treatments. While rust is present, welding repairs, patching, and or epoxy treatment can be used to repair deteriorated steel. To support this, CPED and the HPC noted that one set of letters had already been repaired, repainted, and installed on the interior. Concurring with staff recommendations, the Heritage Preservation Commission voted unanimously to approve the certificate of appropriateness to allow for repairs and replacement of signs and lighting at the Uptown Theater located at 2900 Hennepin Avenue, subject to the following staff conditions. 1, as stated before, all 24 of the historic Uptown sign letters shall be retained, repaired, and reinstalled at the exterior of the building in their original location, placement, and configuration. 2, that the proposed LED lighting features shall be installed in the repaired historic sign letters. And 3, that new LED lights must be consistent with zoning specifications for lighting. Historic drawings and photo evidence shall be used to ensure bulb brightness and glow emit similar appearance of the original incandescent lights. And the appellant is appealing these first 2 conditions of approval and planning to install the historic, remove the historic sign letters and install new letters as shown in their submitted application materials. Staff has not received any public comments since this went to the HPC hearing, but we do understand that the applicant and the appellant are here and would like to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff on the presentation? Seeing none, I appreciate your report. We'll open the public hearing on this item, which is number 6, and ask that the appellant, Mr. Michael Margulies, come forward. And it looks like there's also a second speaker, Rita Goodrich. Did you want to introduce the topic and have Ms. Goodrich speak? Is that what you're thinking? You have 10 minutes, sir. The total amount of time is 10 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Goodman and members of the committee. My name is Michael Margulies. I'm with Newton Res LLC, and we're here on behalf of Armory Holdings LLC. With me today is Rita Goodrich from McDonald Mack, who has one of our probably best professionals in the Twin Cities about preserving historic buildings and their elements. The sole issue on this appeal is whether the signage letters had deteriorated to such a degree that they couldn't be restored and repaired and had to be refabricated. The owner engaged a sign contractor to take these signs down, to clean them, to repair them, and to reinstall them. When the sign contractor did that, the sign contractor says, "I can't do it. They have been rusted and decayed beyond the ability for us to repair them." Most of what colloquially was happening was they're being held together by paint. And they could perhaps affect some repairs, but what those repairs would not allow is for the individual wiring of the lights, which was necessary as part of the historic nature of these lights and as one of the conditions of the HPC. But more importantly, the attempted repair or restoration of these signs, letters, would not make them safe. They had rusted and deteriorated to the point where if we put them up again, what we were faced with was the condition of them falling down, breaking apart, falling 100 feet, and these are metal signs and jagged edges, and they're just not safe. The contractor, or the sign contractor who was attempting to do this says, I can't do this work. There's nothing I can do about it. So at a significantly greater expense, the owner commissioned a process to redesign, to refabricate these letters so that they were exactly as they were a facsimile of the historical letters. And Ms. Goodrich will talk about that in her presentation. In the meantime, as noted, 6 of these letters were repurposed as an art installation for the interior of the building. Now, these letters were not fully repaired or restored in a manner that would have been required for safely hanging them on the exterior. Rather, they were taped and they were covered in parts with fabric material and repainted. No attempt was made to really correct the structural deterioration or the deficiencies. This is sufficient for an art installation hanging on a wall, but it's not sufficient to hang 100 feet up in the air. The remaining 12 letters were in fact disposed of by the contractor. Given their extreme deteriorated condition, there was nothing they could do about them. So it appears that the HPC determined that since 6 letters could be repaired and restored for purposes of creating the art installation on the interior wall, that this meant the letters could be repaired and restored for purposes of hanging on the exterior of the building. I think the HPC failed to acknowledge that the work needed to create the art installation is far different than what's required to put them on the top of the building. I'd like to share the remaining of the time with Ms. Goodrich, who might talk to you about 2 issues. She'll speak to the architectural condition and the deterioration of these letters, and how the refabrication of the letters satisfy the requirements of maintaining the historical continuity.
Ms. Goodrich, welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Rita Goodrich. I'm with McDonald & Mack Architects. 3101 East Franklin is our office address. I am the applicant for the letter replacement, and I've been with McDonald & Mack for going on 30 years. Typically, we try to figure out how to save things. And in talking to the owner, that was the initial intention. The intention was to paint them and put the new lighting in there because it wasn't all working. And so, as was previously stated, the letters, when they were up there and looking at them, they did find that they were not stable enough to remain and to allow the installation, so they were taken down. I've looked at 3 sets of the letters. I did not see the letters that are not around. And I would concur that the letters that were repaired and hung up looks like to me that I know there was no paint removed, and it looks like a piece of fiberglass mesh was put over the holes, because there are holes in there, and then it was painted again. That certainly wouldn't be a kind of repair that would be suitable for an exterior application. It really did nothing to mitigate the rust that's there. It's just covering it up. I did see the letters that, the set of letters that have had no work to them, and there are places where that seem dramatic, where you can put your fist through a hole that's rusted. But that's obvious. But my concern more is when you look at the edge of the letters and the rust that's on either side. You cannot do an adequate repair without removing all that paint, because you have to get to bare metal. Otherwise, you're putting a Band-Aid on, and it's really not safe and advisable on a liability standpoint to reinstall these letters up on the sign. And so, in my opinion, these letters would have so much metal replaced already, because you have to get to sound metal. So if your intersections have a lot of rust, and you remove all that, you now probably have a gap like this to get to sound metal. And we really don't know how much sound metal there is without removing all those layers of paint, but it seems like you could potentially be replacing the majority of the letter. Typically in historic preservation, if you reach about a 50% point, then you do go with repair. I also wanted to say that sometimes there's conjecture in what we're replacing. This time there was not. We have the historic drawings. We have the drawings that were done by the sign company, and I've been there, I've measured them. I've never had an opportunity to submit an application where I had shop drawings and the historic drawing, and they matched up. So I'm very comfortable with what's being proposed for these letters. And I think that they will continue to serve the Uptown neighborhood, continue to be a beacon that it is, that everyone knows. But we need to do that in a safe, sound way. And I think the replacement of these letters really is the way to make that happen.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Is there anyone else here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. I'm just wondering, I'm not sure if staff could answer this question or the applicant. What is the timeline for relighting the sign? So, I mean, more what I hear is, when is the sign going to be relit? And then I hear, what's the holdup? So I'm just curious if anyone, if on our end or the applicant knows what's happened. Now I understand why it's taking so long, but could you tell me what the timeline is to move forward?
Chair Goodman, I believe that the refabrication and the installation could be done within about 6 months.
Oh my God.
It's a pretty expensive process. I just want to sort of highlight, this is not an owner trying to find a less expensive method to solve a problem. This is actually a much more expensive solution than what was originally entailed in the cleaning and the reinstallation.
Okay, thank you. Are there any comments or questions or motions from the committee? Councilmember Chugtai.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to move to grant the appeal submitted by the applicant.
Are there comments or questions about Councilmember Chugtai's motion? Councilmember Ellison.
Just checking in with the attorneys if we have to direct them to do findings of fact.
Madam Chair and committee members, I believe in this situation, since it involves only a couple conditions that are being appealed and that there is more than enough evidence and statements in the record, I don't believe that would be necessary today. Thank you.
Further comments or questions on Councilmember Chugtai's motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item is approved. Perhaps you could ask your client to move faster. Thank you. We have one item remaining, which is a discussion item. It's item number 15. Mr. Mohammed? This is liquor license approval that was held over. This is the application of Zora Darling at 509 First Avenue Northeast in Ward 3. Do we need another staff presentation, or is the council member of the ward prepared to move forward or not?
I am.
Okay, Mr. Mohammed, thank you. You sat through a very long meeting. Thank you so much, sir. But you want to see it through to fruition.
No
I'm
worries.
going to turn this over to Councilmember Rainville.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Mohammed. I know that you're new on the job, and I promise we won't do this to you again. But I also see the representative for Zora Darling here. Thank you for working with me. I did have concerns over this, but we took a tour with the owners. They agreed to limit the entertainment till midnight, and they did extensive neighborhood outreach. So I'm very comfortable with moving this forward for approval.
Great. Item number 15 has been forwarded for approval. Are there further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item is approved. Seeing no further business before us and without objection, I will call the meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
The Shakopee Mdewakanton Sioux community is partnering with Minneapolis